I became Bruce's workout partner because I was too embarrassed to admit I had no idea what I was doing in a gym. At 24, I worked remotely as a graphic designer, which sounded exciting until you realized it mostly meant spending 10 hours a day in sweatpants, talking to clients through video calls while surviving on coffee and frozen meals. My apartment was comfortable, but my lifestyle wasn't. After my doctor gently suggested I should move more before your back files a formal complaint, I bought a gym membership. For 2 weeks I never used it. Every evening I'd put on athletic clothes, stare at myself in the mirror, then invent an excuse. Too tired. Too busy. I'll start Monday. One Monday actually arrived. The gym was only 5 minutes from my apartment, and somehow that made it worse. I couldn't even justify driving there. The receptionist scanned my membership card with a smile that suggested she recognized another person finally using the plan they'd paid for months ago. The place was intimidating. Not because everyone looked like bodybuilders. They didn't. It was because everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going. People moved confidently between machines, adjusted weights without thinking, chatted casually while lifting impossible amounts of metal. Meanwhile, I stood near the entrance pretending to stretch while secretly reading the instructions printed on a treadmill. I spent almost 20 minutes walking at an embarrassingly slow pace before deciding I should probably try actual equipment. That lasted 3 minutes. I couldn't figure out how to adjust one of the machines, and after nearly pinching my fingers, I gave up and wandered toward the free weights. That was somehow even worse. I picked up a dumbbell that looked manageable. It wasn't. As I awkwardly tried to return it to the rack, my grip slipped. The dumbbell hit the rubber floor with a loud crash that turned several heads. "Easy there." The voice came from behind me. I turned around expecting someone annoyed. Instead, I found myself looking at a guy around my age with dark blonde hair, broad shoulders, and an amused smile that somehow managed not to feel mocking. "I'm declaring war on gym equipment," I said before my brain could stop my mouth. He laughed. "I noticed. I think the equipment is winning. So far." He walked over, picked up the dumbbell effortlessly, and placed it back where it belonged. "I'm Bruce. Allen." We shook hands briefly. "First week?" he asked. "First attempt." He looked around at the scattered equipment I'd clearly been avoiding. "I guessed. I look that obvious?" "You looked like someone trying to solve a math exam written in another language." I couldn't even argue. "I've been watching YouTube videos," I admitted. "They make everything look incredibly simple. They also edit out the confusing parts." That made me laugh. Bruce leaned against the rack, completely relaxed. "You live nearby?" "Same building, actually." His eyebrows lifted. "Seriously?" I nodded. "Oakwood Apartments." "No way." He pointed toward the exit. "Building C?" I blinked. "Yeah. I'm Building C too." We stared at each other for a second. "I've never seen you," I said. "You probably have." He shrugged. "I leave pretty early for work." "What do you do?" "Physical therapist." That explained everything. The posture. The confidence. The fact that he looked completely at home surrounded by exercise equipment. "What about you?" "Graphic designer." "So you're one of the lucky people who works in pajamas." "I feel personally attacked." He smiled again. "I wasn't judging." "You absolutely were." "A little." I couldn't remember the last time talking to a stranger had felt this easy. Bruce glanced at the bench beside us. "So, what was the plan before you declared war on the weights?" "I honestly didn't have one." He nodded thoughtfully. "Want some help?" The offer caught me off guard. "I don't want to bother you." "You aren't." He checked his watch. "I've got another 40 minutes. I really don't know anything." "That's easier than correcting bad habits." I hesitated for maybe 3 seconds. "Okay." For the next 40 minutes, Bruce walked me through the basics. Nothing overwhelming. Just simple movements, proper posture, how to adjust machines, how much weight made sense for someone who spent most of his day sitting in front of a computer. He explained everything patiently, never making me feel stupid for asking questions that probably had obvious answers. When I apologized for needing instructions every 5 minutes, he just smiled. Everyone starts somewhere. By the time we finished, I was sweating, exhausted, and surprisingly proud of myself. As we walked toward the lockers, Bruce grabbed a bottle of water from a vending machine. "You coming tomorrow?" I laughed. "You're optimistic. I think you survived today." "Barely." "That's enough." He shrugged. "Come around 6. I frowned. "You always work out at the same time?" "Most weekdays. I usually work late." "Then come when you're done." He said it so casually, like it wasn't strange to invite someone he met less than an hour earlier. Outside the gym, we realized we were walking in the same direction. "So," Bruce said, "which floor?" "4th. He stopped walking. "I'm on the 4th. I stared at him. "What apartment?" "412. I almost laughed. "I'm 414. Now it was his turn to stare. "You're kidding." "No. We've literally been neighbors." "For how long?" "Almost 8 months. I moved in 9 months ago." Bruce shook his head. "That's ridiculous. I guess we have opposite schedules." Apparently. The elevator ride felt strangely comfortable for two people who had technically been strangers an hour earlier. When the doors opened on our floor, we both turned right. Apartment 412. Apartment 414. 2 doors apart. Bruce unlocked his apartment, then looked back at me. 6 tomorrow? I leaned against my own door. "You really think I'll come back?" "I think you don't want to waste the membership." He had a point. "And," he added with a grin, "I'd rather prevent another attack on innocent dumbbells." I laughed. "Fine. See you tomorrow, Alan." I watched him disappear inside before unlocking my own apartment. It felt strange knowing that the guy who'd completely changed my evening had been living 2 doors away for months. I had never noticed him. Now I wasn't sure how I ever could have missed him. The next evening, I almost didn't go. Not because I wasn't interested. Because I was sore in muscles I hadn't known existed. Every movement reminded me that Bruce's definition of keeping it simple and mine were apparently very different. At 5:45, I stood in front of my apartment door debating whether sending a text would be less embarrassing than showing up unable to lift my own backpack. Then I realized something. I didn't have Bruce's number. That somehow made the decision for me. When I stepped into a hallway, apartment 412 opened at almost the exact same moment. Bruce looked up from locking his door. "I was wondering if you'd bail." "I considered it. You look like every step hurts." "It does." He smiled without looking surprised. "Good. Good? It means you actually used your muscles." I was hoping for sympathy. "You'll get that next week." We headed toward the elevator together. Bruce carried a simple gym bag over one shoulder, while I struggled not to wince every time we walked down a flight of stairs. "You really do this 5 times a week?" I asked. "Usually." "Voluntarily?" "Believe it or not, eventually your body stops complaining." "I'm filing a complaint anyway." He laughed. "I'll help you survive today." The gym felt different this time. Not less crowded. Less terrifying. Mostly because I wasn't alone. Bruce greeted the receptionist by name, exchanged a quick joke with another regular near the entrance, and somehow included me in every interaction without making it awkward. "This is Alan," he'd say casually. "My neighbor." Nothing more. Nothing less. It was such a simple introduction, but it immediately made me feel like I belonged there a little more than yesterday. We started with stretching. "This," Bruce said, "is why you're walking like someone twice your age. I thought stretching was optional." "That's exactly why you're sore. I've made several mistakes already." "We're only 2 minutes in." I groaned dramatically. He ignored me. For the next hour, Bruce explained everything. Not just what to do. Why? Why certain movements mattered. Why form was more important than heavy weights. Why consistency beat motivation every single time. You know, I said while catching my breath between sets. You're suspiciously good at teaching. Occupational hazard. I can tell. I spend half my workday explaining exercises to people recovering from injuries. So compared to them, you're actually pretty easy. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. As we moved toward another machine, someone called Bruce's name. Hey! A tall woman with curly brown hair walked over carrying a water bottle. I thought that was you. Bruce smiled. Hey, Maya. She glanced at me. You finally convinced someone to train with you. Bruce laughed. I didn't force him. Barely. He gestured toward me. Alan. My neighbor. Maya smiled warmly. I'm Maya. Nice to meet you. She looked between us. So you're the mysterious neighbor. I blinked. Mysterious? Bruce looked mildly embarrassed. I may have mentioned running into you. When? Yesterday. I looked at him. You talked about me? He shrugged like it wasn't important. I thought it was funny we'd lived 2 doors apart for months. Maya grinned. He spent 5 minutes telling me about the guy who nearly dropped a dumbbell on his foot. I covered my face. I was hoping nobody saw that. Oh, people saw. Bruce tried and failed not to laugh. I'm moving. No, you're not. I have to. You live next door. That's the problem. Maya laughed. I'll let you two continue. She started walking away before turning back. Bruce. Yeah? Don't overdo it. He rolled his eyes. I know. She looked directly at me. If he starts giving you 20 different exercises, tell him to calm down. I appreciate the warning. Bruce waited until she disappeared into another section before shaking his head. She's dramatic. I like her already. So does everyone. The workout passed faster than the first one. Partly because I knew what to expect. Mostly because talking to Bruce somehow made exercising less miserable. He had an easy way of filling silence without forcing conversation. Sometimes we'd talk about movies. Sometimes about work. Sometimes about absolutely nothing. You've always lived here? I asked while we wiped down the equipment. In the city? Yeah. Pretty much. My parents are about 20 minutes away. You close with them? He nodded. Very. What about yours? They're in another state. That must be hard. Sometimes. I leaned against the machine for a moment. I moved here after college. For work? I wanted a fresh start. Bruce didn't ask what I meant. I appreciated that. Instead, he simply nodded. I get that. When we finished, I was tired again. But not destroyed. Progress. Outside the gym, the evening air felt cooler than usual. You hungry? Bruce asked. My stomach answered before I could. He laughed. I'll take that as yes. There's a place across the street. I should probably go home. You should. He waited. But I don't really want to cook. So don't. I'll regret eating burgers after exercising. You'll regret frozen pizza more. I couldn't argue with that logic. The diner was small, loud, and smelled like grilled onions. We found a booth near the window. So, Bruce said while looking at the menu, tell me something interesting about yourself. I frowned. That's a dangerous question. Why? I immediately forget everything interesting I've ever done. He laughed. Fine. I'll go first. He leaned back comfortably. I've broken my wrist twice. How? First time climbing a tree when I was 10. Second? I fell off a ladder while trying to rescue a cat. I stared at him. Seriously? The cat was completely fine. What about you? I looked like an idiot. That wasn't the question. It felt relevant. I smiled despite myself. Okay. I play guitar. Bruce looked surprised. I didn't expect that. Why not? You seem He searched for the right word. Creative? I am. But quietly. What does that even mean? You don't seem like someone who needs everyone to know. I looked at him for a second. It was strangely accurate. I mostly play for myself. You any good? Good enough that my neighbors haven't complained. Bruce grinned. I guess that includes me. I'll have to test that theory. I expect a concert. That's definitely not happening. We'll negotiate. Dinner stretched longer than either of us seemed to expect. We talked about terrible first jobs, favorite travel destinations, childhood stories, the embarrassing things we'd done as teenagers. At one point, Bruce laughed so hard at one of my stories that people at the next table looked over. I'm never letting you forget that, he said. I shared that in confidence. You shared it over fries. Same thing. By the time we walked back toward the apartment building, it was already dark. The conversation never felt forced. There were no awkward pauses. No pressure. Just easy. As we reached the entrance, Bruce held the door open. You know, he said, this workout partner arrangement is working out pretty well. We've had exactly 2 workouts. And 1 dinner. That wasn't part of the agreement. It probably should be. I looked at him. You make friends unusually fast. He thought about that. No. I just don't pretend not to like people when I do. The sentence caught me completely off guard. He said it casually, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The elevator arrived. We stepped inside. Bruce looked at the floor numbers while I tried not to think too much about what he just said. When the doors opened onto the 4th floor, we walked toward our apartments in comfortable silence. At his door, Bruce paused. Same time tomorrow? I smiled. I think my body might actually survive it. That's not a yes. Fine. I unlocked apartment 414. See you tomorrow? As I closed my door behind me, I realized something that hadn't happened in a very long time. For the first time since moving into the building, I was actually looking forward to tomorrow. Over the next 2 weeks, going to the gym stopped feeling like an obligation. It became part of my routine. Not because I suddenly loved exercising. I still complained every chance I got. Bruce simply learned to ignore about 80% of it. The treadmill is trying to kill me. It isn't. My legs disagree. They'll survive. I don't think they will. You've said that every day. And one day I'll be right. He just smiled. Somehow, that smile had become dangerously effective at convincing me to finish one more set. I wasn't the only one noticing the change. One Thursday afternoon, during a video call with my coworker Jenna, she tilted her head. You look different. Different? I don't know. You seem happier. That answer surprised me. Happier? Yeah. She narrowed her eyes dramatically. Either you're dating someone or you've discovered caffeine that actually works. I laughed. Neither. So what's going on? I started going to the gym. She stared at me. The gym made you happier? It wasn't the gym. She immediately smiled. Oh. What? So there's a person. There isn't. There is. He's just. I stopped. Just what? My workout partner. Jenna leaned closer to the camera. You hesitated. I was trying to find the right word. You found the wrong one. I shook my head, laughing. We're neighbors. Oh, neighbors. She dragged out the word just enough to be annoying. Don't. I'm saying nothing. You were absolutely saying something. I literally wasn't. She grinned. But I was thinking it. Thankfully, another coworker joined the meeting before she could continue. Still, her words lingered longer than I wanted to admit. That evening, Bruce was already waiting in the lobby when I came downstairs. You're late. I had meetings. You also have terrible time management. I was working. So was I. He pushed open the front door. You owe me 3 minutes. I'll pay you back. With extra stretching. That's blackmail. It's motivation. By now we'd settled into an easy rhythm. Bruce always arrived first. I always complained during cardio. He always pretended not to hear it. Somewhere along the way, we had also started talking about things beyond work and exercise. Real things. I almost quit physical therapy. I looked over while adjusting the rowing machine. You did? Second year of college. What changed? I lost confidence. Bruce shrugged. I thought everyone else knew more than I did. You? I know. He smiled faintly. Hard to imagine now. It is. What happened? One of my professors told me something. He adjusted the resistance. He said confidence isn't something you wait for. You build it. I thought about that for a moment. Smart professor. He was. What about you? What about me? Ever think about changing careers? I nodded. Every deadline. He laughed. No, seriously. I wanted to study music. Bruce looked genuinely surprised. I didn't know that. My parents weren't against it. They were just worried. So graphic design became the compromise. Do you regret it? I considered the question. No. I actually like what I do. I just wonder sometimes. About? What would have happened? Bruce nodded slowly. I think everyone wonders that. For a while we exercised in comfortable silence. Not awkward. Comfortable. That difference mattered. Halfway through the workout, Bruce's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and smiled. My mom. You close? She checks on me almost every day. You answer every time? I try to. He looked at me. Your parents? We talk once a week. Only once? They're not very frequent callers. Bruce nodded thoughtfully. My mom would probably move into my apartment if I ignored her for a week. I smiled. That sounds nice. He looked at me carefully. It is. There was something in his expression that suggested he understood I hadn't meant it as a joke. He didn't ask questions. Again, I appreciated that. After the workout, we stopped at the grocery store. It hadn't been planned. Bruce remembered he needed milk. I remembered my refrigerator contained approximately 1 yogurt and ketchup. You seriously eat like this? Bruce looked into my shopping basket with obvious concern. What? This isn't food. It becomes food. No. He picked up a package of chicken. This is food. I know how chicken works. I'm not convinced. I've survived 24 years. Barely. He started placing vegetables into my basket. I don't remember agreeing to this. You didn't. I'm perfectly capable of shopping. Then explain the frozen waffles. They're efficient. They're breakfast. They're dinner too. Bruce sighed dramatically. I can't watch this. 10 minutes later, my basket looked completely different. Healthier. More expensive. Congratulations, I said. You've successfully parented me. I refused responsibility. You literally chose my vegetables. You needed supervision. Back at the apartment building, we divided the grocery bags. You bought too much. You'll thank me. I doubt it. You will. The elevator was unusually crowded. An older couple from the second floor squeezed in beside us. So, the woman asked with a warm smile. How long have you boys known each other? Bruce and I exchanged a quick glance. About 3 weeks, he answered. Oh. She looked surprised. We thought you'd been friends much longer. Really? You seem very comfortable together. Her husband nodded. You always leave together. And come back laughing. I felt unexpectedly self-conscious. Bruce just smiled politely. We're neighbors. Best kind of friendship, the woman said. When the elevator reached the second floor, they wished us a good evening and stepped out. The doors closed again. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, Bruce looked over. I guess we're predictable. I didn't realize people noticed. They notice everything. The elevator reached the 4th floor. As we walked toward our apartments, Bruce suddenly asked, "Movie tomorrow?" I looked up. "What?" "Friday." "No gym. I figured we could order food." He unlocked apartment 412. "I've got a projector." I blinked. "You have a projector?" "Best purchase I've ever made." "I've never met anyone who casually owns a projector." "You have now." I laughed. "Is that your way of inviting yourself to spend my Friday evening?" He leaned against his door. "I was actually inviting you." There was something strangely effortless about the invitation. No awkwardness. No hesitation. Just two neighbors making plans. "I'd like that." His smile appeared almost instantly. 7? I'll bring dessert. I'll handle dinner." We both stepped inside our apartments. As I set the grocery bags on my kitchen counter, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Bruce. Forgot to ask for your number earlier. Figured being 2 doors apart isn't always practical." A second message appeared almost immediately. "Also, don't buy frozen waffles tomorrow." I laughed out loud before typing back. "You're becoming alarmingly invested in my nutrition." His reply came less than 10 seconds later. Occupational hazard. I stared at the screen for a moment longer than necessary. Then I caught myself smiling for absolutely no reason. And for the first time, I found myself wondering if this friendship was becoming important to Bruce, too. Friday somehow felt longer than the rest of the week. Not because work was particularly difficult. Because every time I checked the clock, it seemed impossible that only 15 minutes had passed. Around 6:30, I finally gave up pretending to focus on my laptop. I changed into a clean t-shirt, grabbed the cheesecake I'd promised to bring, and stepped into the hallway. Before I could knock, apartment 412 opened. Bruce looked up from locking his door. "I was about to come get you. I figured I'd save you the trip." "You were exactly on time. I didn't want another lecture. I only lecture about exercise. And vegetables. And frozen waffles. I knew there were conditions." He laughed and held the door open. His apartment was almost the opposite of mine. Mine had looked temporary ever since I'd moved in. Bruce's looked lived in. Bookshelves lined one wall. Plants occupied every available windowsill. There were framed photographs instead of empty white walls. Nothing expensive. Just warm. "Wow." Bruce looked around. "What? It actually looks like someone lives here." He glanced toward my apartment across the hall. "I've been meaning to ask. Why are your walls completely empty?" "I keep telling myself I'll decorate." "For 8 months?" "I've been busy." "You've been procrastinating." "That's also true." I wandered farther inside. A guitar rested on a stand near the bookshelf. "You play?" Bruce looked almost embarrassed. "A little." "You never mentioned that." "You never asked?" I smiled. "Fair." He nodded toward the instrument. "You. I noticed you looking at it. I thought you only played." "I do. Mostly. But I'm not very good. We should test that someday." He looked at me with a grin. "I think I said that first." "You did. I'm stealing your idea." The projector filled almost an entire wall. "You weren't kidding. I never joke about movie nights." "What are we watching?" I made a list. He handed me the remote. "You choose." The list contained everything from action movies to old comedies. "You seriously organized them by genre." I like being prepared. "I can see that." I picked an adventure film we both somehow missed. "Excellent choice." Bruce disappeared into the kitchen. "I ordered food already." "You planned this." "I was hungry." 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Pizza. Salad. Garlic bread. Enough food for at least 4 people. "You expecting guests?" Bruce looked offended. "I exercise." "Good point." We settled onto opposite ends of the couch. Or at least we started there. The movie had barely reached the opening scene before Bruce paused it. "I forgot drinks." "I can get them." You don't know where anything is. I know where kitchens usually keep glasses. You'd be surprised. When he returned carrying 2 glasses of iced tea, I had somehow ended up flipping through one of the photo albums on his coffee table. You don't mind? He glanced down. Not at all. The first pages showed family vacations, camping trips, birthdays, graduation. Bruce at different ages, smiling in almost every picture. You haven't changed much. I definitely have. You've gotten taller. Barely. I pointed to a photo of what looked like a high school soccer team. You played? For years. Were you good? I was enthusiastic. That's not what I asked? He laughed. I was okay. Another picture caught my attention. Bruce stood beside an older woman with almost the exact same smile. Your mom? He nodded. She insisted on taking pictures constantly. I'm starting to understand why she calls every day. Exactly. There was affection in his voice that made me smile. I closed the album carefully. You've got a nice family. I do. He looked at me for a second. You should come to one of our barbecues sometime. The invitation came so naturally that I almost missed what he'd said. What? My parents usually have everyone over once a month. I don't think they want some random neighbors showing up. Bruce frowned. They've already heard about you. I blinked. They have? My mom asked how the new workout partner was doing. You've been talking about me to your family? He looked mildly confused. Yeah. Why is that surprising? I don't know. It just is. Bruce shrugged. They ask about my week. I tell them about my week. I guess that included meeting you. Something warm settled quietly in my chest. Before I could answer, the movie resumed. About halfway through, I realized neither of us had paid much attention to it. We kept pausing. One story led to another. Bruce told me about accidentally locking himself on a balcony during college. I admitted I'd once sent an unfinished design to an important client by mistake. He laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. I survived. Barely. You're never letting that go. Never. At some point, Bruce muted the movie completely. I have a question. You sound serious. I am. When was the last time you actually relaxed? I frowned. What do you mean? I mean without working. Without checking emails. Without thinking about deadlines. I opened my mouth. Then closed it again. Bruce noticed immediately. That's what I thought. I've been busy. So have I. That's different. Why? You seem. I searched for the word. Balanced. He smiled. I'm not. I just learned the hard way. What happened? He looked down at his glass. A few years ago I worked too much. Really. 12-hour days. Weekends. I thought I was helping everyone. And? I burned out. He shrugged. My body forced me to slow down. So now, I protect my free time. There was a quiet certainty in the way he said it. Like he'd earned that lesson. You should try it. I wouldn't know how. You could learn. I smiled. From my workout partner? From your very wise workout partner. I'll need proof. I already got you to eat vegetables. I walked into that one. You absolutely did. It was nearly midnight before I realized how late it had become. I should probably go. Bruce looked toward the paused movie. We never finished it. We talked through most of it. Worth it. I stood, stretching slightly. Thanks. For what? The evening. He looked genuinely surprised. You don't have to thank me. I know. But I wanted to. We walked into the hallway together. I stopped at my apartment door while Bruce leaned casually against his own. There was a comfortable silence between us. Not empty. Comfortable. Finally Bruce smiled. You know. What? I haven't had this much fun on a Friday in a long time. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. I was thinking the same thing. For a moment neither of us moved. Neither of us seemed in a hurry to end the conversation. Then Bruce rubbed the back of his neck. "Breakfast tomorrow?" I laughed. "We literally just finished dinner. I like planning ahead. I've noticed." "So?" I unlocked my door. "Text me in the morning?" His grin widened. "I'll take that as a yes." As I stepped inside my apartment, my phone buzzed before I'd even closed the door. "Bruce. Good night, neighbor." I looked at the message for several seconds before replying. "Good night." It was a simple exchange. 2 ordinary texts. Yet somehow they left me smiling long after I turned the lights off. For reasons I still wasn't ready to examine too closely. Saturday morning started with someone knocking on my door. Not texting. Actually knocking. Still half asleep, I glanced at the clock. 8:17. "You're an awful person," I muttered as I opened the door. Bruce stood there holding 2 coffee cups. "I brought peace offerings." I looked at the coffee. Then at him. "I forgive you. I knew you would." He handed me one of the cups. "I've also brought muffins. I definitely forgive you." Bruce laughed. "You've got bed hair. I wasn't expecting visitors." I texted. I frowned and reached for my phone. 3 unread messages. "Bruce. Good morning. Breakfast? Or are you still unconscious?" "I may have slept through all of those." I figured. He took a sip of his coffee. "So? 5 minutes? I can wait." Instead of going back into his apartment, Bruce leaned casually against the hallway wall while I hurried to get dressed. When I came back out, he looked up. "That was 6 minutes. You timed me?" I estimated. "Liar. Accurate liar." The cafe was only a short walk away. The morning air was cool, and the streets were quieter than usual. "I don't usually see this part of the neighborhood," I admitted. "You sleep too late." "I work late." "Same excuse." "You sound like my mother." "I'll take that as a compliment." The cafe was small enough that the owner greeted Bruce by name. "The usual?" Bruce nodded. "And whatever he's having." He pointed toward me. "I'm perfectly capable of ordering." "I know. But you still would have picked something involving too much sugar." "I feel judged." "You are." I couldn't stop smiling. We found a table near the window. "So," Bruce said, "any exciting weekend plans?" "I was going to clean." He stared at me. "That's your exciting plan?" "I also have laundry." "Alan." "What?" "We need to improve your weekends." "I like quiet weekends." "So do I." He stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "But quiet doesn't have to mean boring." "I'm listening." "There are hiking trails about 40 minutes away." "I've never been." "There's a farmer's market tomorrow." "I've never been there either." "You've lived here almost a year." "I know." Bruce shook his head with exaggerated disappointment. "We're fixing this." "We?" "You'll need a guide." "And you've volunteered." "I apparently have." The waitress arrived with our breakfast. The conversation drifted naturally to lighter topics. Favorite books. Terrible television shows. Music. "You seriously don't listen to podcasts?" Bruce asked. "I've tried. And? I end up thinking about work." "So music wins." "Always." Bruce nodded. "I listen to audiobooks while driving." "What are you listening to now?" He mentioned a mystery novel I'd been meaning to read. "I haven't started it yet." "I won't spoil anything." "I appreciate that." Halfway through breakfast, Bruce's phone buzzed. He glanced down and smiled. "My sister." "The one you mentioned?" "Emily." He typed a quick reply. "She wants to know if I'm coming to dinner tomorrow." "You see your family a lot?" "Most weekends." He looked at me. "You're still invited." I nearly laughed. "You've mentioned me to your sister too?" "I told you. My family asks questions. You've become part of the answers." The sentence settled quietly between us. Not dramatic. Just honest. I looked down at my coffee for a moment. I appreciate that. Bruce seemed almost confused. For what? I don't know. For including me. He studied my face for a second before speaking. I've never understood pretending people aren't important. His voice was calm. Matter of fact. If I enjoy spending time with someone. He shrugged. I talk about them. There was no hidden meaning. No grand declaration. Just Bruce being Bruce. Open. Straightforward. Comfortably honest. After breakfast, we walked without any particular destination. Bruce pointed out places I'd somehow never noticed. A tiny bookstore hidden between two larger buildings. A bakery famous for cinnamon rolls. A park with walking trails behind it. You've really explored this city. I like wandering. I usually go from my apartment to work. And back. Pretty much. He looked over. You miss a lot doing that. I know. For a while we walked in silence. Not because we had run out of things to say. Because neither of us seemed to mind the quiet. Eventually we reached the park. People walked dogs. Families spread blankets across the grass. Someone played acoustic guitar beneath a large oak tree. Bruce nodded toward an empty bench. Sit? Sure. We watched people pass for several minutes. I've got a question, Bruce said. Go ahead. Why did you really move here? I looked at him. I told you. For work. He smiled slightly. No. That's why you stayed. I asked why you came? I hesitated. Bruce didn't interrupt. Didn't pressure me. Just waited. Finally I sighed. I needed a place where nobody knew me. He nodded once. I figured. I glanced sideways. You did? People don't usually describe moving as a fresh start unless they're leaving something behind. I looked toward the trees. It wasn't anything dramatic. My college friends all stayed in my hometown. You wanted something different? I wanted to figure out who I was without everyone expecting me to stay exactly the same. Bruce listened quietly. I've always been the one who avoided conflict. The reliable one. The quiet one. I smiled faintly. I think everyone already knew who they expected Alan to become. And you weren't sure they were right. I looked at him. Exactly. He nodded thoughtfully. I get that. No questions? You'll tell me the rest when you're ready. The answer surprised me. You don't want details? I want you to be comfortable. There it was again. That effortless kindness that never felt performative. Never forced. Just natural. We sat there a little longer before Bruce stood. Come on. Where are we going? Ice cream. It's 10:30 in the morning. He smiled. Exactly. You make surprisingly convincing arguments. I've had practice. As we walked toward the small ice cream stand near the edge of the park, I found myself looking at Bruce a little differently. Not because anything dramatic had happened. Nothing had. We'd simply spent another morning talking. Laughing. Walking through the city. Yet somehow it felt as though I'd known him far longer than 3 weeks. And judging by the easy smile he gave me whenever our eyes met, I had a feeling he was beginning to feel exactly the same way. By the 4th week, people at the gym had stopped assuming I was alone. If Bruce arrived first, someone would ask, "Your neighbor running late?" If I showed up before him, the receptionist would smile. "Bruce is already upstairs." It was strange how quickly routines became recognizable. "So," Bruce said one evening while adjusting the cable machine, "guess what happened today? You convinced another patient to stretch?" They actually listened. I knew something impossible had happened. He pointed at me. "You're getting sarcastic. I learned from the best. I'm choosing to take that as a compliment." "You should." He stepped back while I finished my set. "You've gotten stronger." "I have? You don't notice?" "I mostly notice that I still hate lunges." "You complain less." "I've accepted defeat." Bruce laughed. "I'll take that." When we finished, Maya wandered over again, wiping sweat from her forehead. "There you two are. Bruce smiled. Hey. She looked at me. I have to admit, I underestimated you. That sounds encouraging. I figured you'd disappear after the first week. I almost did. Bruce nodded. He definitely almost did. Traitor. Maya laughed. I've known Bruce for years. He usually scares people away with fitness advice. I do not. You absolutely do. She looked back at me. But somehow you survived. Barely. Bruce crossed his arms dramatically. I've been nothing but supportive. You made me buy broccoli. Which you actually cooked. I blinked. How did you know that? Bruce looked guilty for exactly half a second. I told her. You told her about broccoli? It was a proud moment. Maya burst out laughing. I'm sorry. I didn't realize vegetables were major life updates. Bruce shrugged. They were for you. I shook my head. You've got to stop telling people everything. I don't tell people everything. You told your family. You told Maya. He thought about it. I tell people who matter. The sentence landed quietly. Maya looked between us, then smiled to herself. I'll leave you two alone. She started walking away before calling back over her shoulder. Bruce. What? Mom instincts. Bruce groaned. You're not old enough for those. I don't need to be. She disappeared toward the lockers before either of us could ask what she meant. What was that about? I asked. Bruce looked genuinely confused. No idea. But something about the tiny smile Maya had worn stayed with me. On the walk home, we stopped at a crosswalk waiting for the light to change. Bruce glanced sideways. So? My parents are serious. About what? They really do want to meet you. I laughed. They don't even know me. They know enough. Like what? He started counting on his fingers. You work from home. You play guitar. You finally learned how to squat correctly. I can't believe that made the list. It was an achievement. I'm beginning to think your family discusses me over dinner. They discuss everybody. The light changed. We crossed the street together. My mom also thinks you're probably shy. I looked at him. What did you tell her? I said you're quieter than me. That's not exactly difficult. He smiled. I also said you're thoughtful. I felt unexpectedly warm. And that you've made going to the gym a lot more fun. The honesty in his voice made me glance away for a second. I could say the same thing. Bruce's smile widened. I was hoping you would. When we reached the apartment building, we found the lobby unusually crowded. Several residents stood around talking while maintenance workers wheeled boxes toward the elevators. What happened? Bruce asked one of our neighbors. Water's being shut off tomorrow morning. The older man sighed dramatically. Apparently they're replacing pipes. Bruce thanked him before looking at me. Guess we're showering tonight. Excellent reminder. The elevator was full, so we waited. Mrs. Carter, the woman from the second floor, noticed us immediately. There you boys are. Bruce smiled politely. Evening. She looked at both of us with obvious amusement. I told Harold you'd be back around now. Her husband nodded. You're becoming predictable. Bruce laughed. We've heard. Mrs. Carter tilted her head. So, when are you decorating his apartment? I blinked. Bruce blinked. My apartment? She pointed directly at me. Bruce told us your walls are still empty. I turned slowly toward him. You've been discussing my decorating habits with the neighbors? Bruce immediately looked guilty. It came up. How? I don't remember. Mrs. Carter laughed. It was when Bruce borrowed our drill. I looked at him. You borrowed a drill? Bruce rubbed the back of his neck. I was thinking about putting shelves up. In my apartment? I was going to ask first. You planned home renovations without telling me? It wasn't renovation. It was shelves. I couldn't help laughing. You are unbelievable. Mrs. Carter smiled warmly. He means well. I know. Bruce looked relieved that I wasn't actually upset. I just don't like seeing empty walls. I've noticed. When we finally reached the fourth floor, Bruce unlocked his apartment, but didn't go inside immediately. So, can I actually help? With what? Your apartment. I looked through my open doorway. He wasn't wrong. It still looked temporary. Almost impersonal. I don't even know where to start. Bruce smiled. Good. I do. You've really thought about this. For weeks. I laughed. Should I be worried? No. He looked directly at me. I just think people deserve spaces that feel like home. Something about the way he said it made me pause. Not because of decorating. Because I had the distinct feeling he wasn't only talking about furniture. I'll make you a deal, I said. I'm listening. You help me decorate. And? I'll cook dinner afterward. Bruce grinned immediately. You cook? I can follow recipes. That's good enough. When? This weekend? I nodded. Deal. We shook hands dramatically like we were signing a business contract. Bruce laughed. I've got a feeling this is going to be fun. So do I. As I stepped into my apartment, I looked around with fresh eyes. The blank walls. The unopened boxes still tucked into a corner. The lack of anything personal. For the first time since moving in, I realized Bruce was right. It didn't feel like home. And somehow, the person most determined to change that was the neighbor I'd only known for a month. The thought stayed with me long after I went to bed. Not because of the shelves. But because I couldn't remember the last time someone had cared so naturally about making my life a little brighter. Saturday afternoon turned into something I hadn't expected. Bruce knocked on my door carrying a notebook. Not tools. Not shelves. A notebook. What is that? He held it up proudly. The plan. You made a plan? You said I could help? I didn't realize there would be paperwork. He laughed. It's just ideas. I stepped aside so he could come in. Bruce walked slowly through my apartment like he'd never seen it before, even though he'd glanced inside dozens of times from the hallway. He stopped in the living room. So, when you picture home. He looked around. What do you picture? I leaned against the kitchen counter. I've honestly never thought about it. Try. I looked around the room. I guess. I hesitated. I like places that feel calm. Natural light. Books. Music. Bruce nodded, making a few notes. What? I'm listening. You're taking this very seriously. I told you. I like spaces that feel lived in. He looked toward the empty wall opposite the couch. You've got a great wall for bookshelves. I own maybe 20 books. You can always buy more. I think that's exactly what a bookstore owner would say. I'm not a bookstore owner. You sound like one. Bruce smiled. We'll start small. He looked toward the corner where my guitar case rested. Why is that still packed away? I followed his gaze. I don't know. You play. I do. So why is it hidden? I didn't have an answer. Bruce noticed. See? He pointed toward the case. That should be out. It belongs in your apartment. My guitar? No. A part of your life. The words stayed with me. We spent the next hour moving furniture. Nothing dramatic. Just small adjustments. The couch rotated slightly toward the windows. The coffee table moved closer. A reading chair ended up beside the balcony door. Bruce stepped back and crossed his arms. Better. I had to admit he was right. The room somehow felt larger. Warmer. You've done this before. My sister changes furniture every 6 months. You've had practice. I've had no choice. I laughed. The afternoon passed surprisingly quickly. We measured walls. Made a shopping list. Talked about colors. At one point Bruce disappeared into his apartment and returned carrying 2 framed photographs. What are those? Examples. They're staying in my apartment, I looked more closely. One was a landscape from a hiking trip. The other showed a quiet lake at sunset. You took these? He nodded. Photography's another hobby. I stared at him. How many hobbies do you have? He counted silently. I don't know. Too many? Probably. I shook my head. Meanwhile, I've been working and ordering frozen waffles. Formerly ordering frozen waffles. I've been changed. You've evolved. By late afternoon, we headed to a home goods store. Bruce walked confidently through every aisle. You've definitely done this before. I helped Emily furnish her apartment. Did she survive? Barely. You enjoyed being in charge. I enjoy helping. There was a difference. And I realized he was right. He never pushed. He suggested. If I disliked something, he simply nodded and moved on. What about this? He asked, holding up a framed print of a mountain landscape. I tilted my head. Not really. He immediately put it back. No problem. 10 minutes later, I found a simple black and white photograph of a rainy city street. Bruce smiled the moment he saw it. That feels like you. You think? I do. I looked at it again. I like it. Then that's the one. No debate. No convincing. Just quiet encouragement. On the drive back, my phone buzzed. Jenna. I answered through the car speaker. Hey. So. She sounded suspiciously cheerful. How's the weekend? I looked at Bruce, who immediately focused very hard on driving. Good. What are you doing? I went shopping. Voluntarily? Very funny. With who? I hesitated. Bruce glanced at me with an amused smile. My neighbor. The workout partner? Yeah. There was a tiny pause. What? Nothing. Jenna. I said nothing. Bruce was clearly trying not to laugh. I can hear someone laughing. Ignore him. Oh, he's there? Yes. Another dramatic pause. I hope you boys have fun decorating. I buried my face in my hand. We're hanging shelves. That's all. Of course. I'll talk to you Monday. She hung up before I could defend myself. Bruce finally laughed. She's funny. She's impossible. I like her. She already thinks we're attached at the hip. Bruce smiled without looking away from the road. Are we? The question caught me completely off guard. I mean, he shrugged casually. We've spent almost every day together for a month. When you put it that way, it sounds like a lot. It doesn't feel like a lot. I looked out the window for a second. No, it doesn't. The apartment slowly began changing over the next few hours. The shelves went up. The framed photograph found its place above the couch. Books finally came out of moving boxes. The guitar left its case for the first time since I'd moved in. Bruce stepped back and looked around. There. I followed his gaze. The apartment looked different. Still mine. But warmer. More personal. More alive. It actually feels. I searched for the word. Comfortable. Bruce smiled with quiet satisfaction. I was hoping you'd say that. I looked around one more time before turning toward him. You know. What? I think this is the first time this place has actually felt like home. For just a second, something softened in Bruce's expression. I'm glad. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No long silence. No lingering look. Just a genuine smile that reached his eyes. And somehow, standing in my newly transformed living room, I realized something else had quietly changed. It wasn't only the apartment that had started feeling like home. Somewhere over the last month, spending time with Bruce had started to feel that way too. Sunday arrived with perfect weather, which, according to Bruce, meant we had absolutely no excuse to stay inside. At 9 in the morning my phone buzzed. Bruce. Comfortable shoes. Meet me downstairs in 15. I stared at the message. Then replied. You continue to be suspiciously mysterious. His answer appeared almost immediately. You'll survive. When I reached the lobby, Bruce was waiting with a small backpack slung over one shoulder. You actually listened. I wore comfortable shoes. I'm impressed. Where are we going? You'll see. We ended up driving just outside the city to a nature reserve I'd somehow never heard of. I've lived here almost a year. I know. How did I miss this? Bruce shrugged. You spent too much time working. I notice a pattern. So do I. The trail wasn't difficult. Wide paths wound through tall trees, and the morning air smelled like pine after the rain from the night before. Neither of us hurried. Bruce pointed out birds he somehow recognized. I have no idea how you know all of this. My grandfather. He brought me here when I was little. You still come? When I need to think. That answer felt very Bruce. Quiet. Simple. Honest. After nearly half an hour of walking, we reached a small lake. The surface was almost perfectly still. Bruce sat on a weathered wooden bench overlooking the water. This is my favorite place. I looked around slowly. I can see why. For several minutes neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. The kind of silence that only happens when two people stop feeling like they need to fill every second with conversation. Eventually Bruce broke it. You know. What? I almost didn't offer to help you at the gym. I looked over. Really? You looked like you wanted to disappear. I did. I figured if I walked over. He smiled sheepishly. You might think I was showing off. I thought you were just being nice. I was trying. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I almost walked away. What changed your mind? You made that comment. Which one? I think the equipment is winning. I laughed. Oh. You looked embarrassed. But you were still joking. I like that. You decided we could be friends because of one bad joke? Bruce smiled. It wasn't just a joke. You seemed. He searched for the word. Kind. I blinked. You figured that out from 30 seconds? I guessed. I was right. I looked out over the lake again. You know what I thought? When? The first day. When you introduced yourself. What? I thought you were one of those people who's nice to everyone. Bruce frowned. I am nice to everyone. Exactly. I assumed you'd forget my name by the next day. He looked genuinely surprised. Why would I? I don't know. I guess. I shrugged. I've met people like that. Friendly for 5 minutes. Then gone. Bruce shook his head. I've never understood that. If I like someone. He smiled slightly. I remember them. The words settled warmly somewhere in my chest. You've made that pretty obvious. I'm not exactly subtle. No. You really aren't. He laughed. I'll take that. We started walking again. The trail curved around the lake before climbing a gentle hill. Bruce stopped suddenly. Look! Through an opening in the trees, the entire valley stretched below us. The city shimmered in the distance. It's beautiful. I thought you'd like it. I pulled out my phone. Bruce was already reaching for his camera. You weren't kidding about photography. He glanced over. I'll send you the pictures. You don't mind? I like sharing them. He snapped a few photos of the landscape. Then lowered the camera. Stand over there. What? I want one with someone in it. I'll ruin it. You won't. I reluctantly walked toward the overlook. Bruce adjusted the lens. Don't pose. I wasn't planning to. Good. The camera clicked once. Then again. When he lowered it, I walked back over. Can I see? He handed me the camera. The picture surprised me. I wasn't looking at the camera. I was looking toward the valley, smiling slightly at something neither of us remembered saying. It looked natural. I actually like this. I knew you would. You've got a good eye. Bruce shrugged modestly. I just wait for real moments. We continued walking until lunchtime before finding a quiet picnic area. Bruce pulled sandwiches from his backpack. You packed lunch? I told you. I plan ahead. I underestimated how serious you were. Everyone does. I laughed. While we ate, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Mom. How are you? Haven't heard from you in a few days. I smiled. I should answer. Bruce nodded. Go ahead. I quickly typed back. A moment later, another message appeared. Doing anything fun this weekend? I hesitated. Bruce noticed. What? My mom. So? She asked what I'm doing. And? I looked at him. I was about to say I'm hiking with my neighbor. Bruce smiled. Seems accurate. It does. I sent the message. Almost instantly, my phone buzzed again. The workout partner? I looked up. Bruce raised an eyebrow. She knows about me? I laughed. I might have mentioned you. When? I don't know. Over the last few weeks. Bruce looked strangely pleased. So I've met your family too. Sort of. What does she think? I smiled. Probably that you're responsible for me eating vegetables. He laughed so hard he nearly dropped his sandwich. I'll accept that reputation. Later that afternoon, as we drove back toward the apartment, I watched the trees disappear behind us. The weekend had been simple. Breakfast. A walk. A conversation. Nothing extraordinary. Yet I couldn't remember the last time I'd enjoyed ordinary moments this much. As if reading my thoughts, Bruce glanced over. You've been quiet. I'm thinking. Good thoughts? I nodded. Yeah. The good kind? He smiled and returned his attention to the road. Neither of us realized it yet. But somewhere between gym workouts, movie nights, decorating apartments, and quiet walks through the woods, our lives had started weaving together in ways that felt effortless. Neither of us was trying to force it. It was simply happening. And for the first time in a long while, I found myself wondering where that path might eventually lead. A few weeks after our hike, life settled into a rhythm that felt so natural I stopped noticing it. Bruce and I still worked out together 4 evenings a week. We still argued over groceries. He still claimed I didn't eat enough vegetables. I still insisted he worried too much. Somehow, those conversations became my favorite part of every day. One Friday evening, Bruce knocked on my door holding 2 mugs of coffee. My parents are having everyone over tomorrow. I smiled. I remember. You still coming? I nodded. If the invitation hasn't expired. It won't. He looked unusually thoughtful. My mom's excited to meet you. That's slightly terrifying. It shouldn't be. He smiled. They already feel like they know you. The barbecue was exactly what I'd imagined. Warm. Loud. Comfortable. Bruce's father greeted me with a firm handshake. So you're Alan. I've heard a lot about you. I looked immediately at Bruce. You really tell everyone everything. Bruce laughed. I tell them about people who matter. His mother hugged me before I even knew how to react. It is so nice to finally meet you. Bruce talks about you all the time. I could actually feel my face getting warm. I'm starting to realize that. Emily appeared from the backyard carrying a bowl of fruit. Alan! She smiled like we already knew each other. I'm Emily. It's nice to finally meet you. She grinned. I already know you hate frozen waffles. I buried my face in my hands. He really doesn't keep secrets. Bruce looked completely unapologetic. It was funny. The afternoon passed easily. Bruce's parents treated me like I had been visiting for years. His father insisted I try everything from the grill. His mother wanted to hear about my work. Emily teased Bruce every chance she got. Watching them together explained so much. The warmth. The openness. The habit of making everyone around them feel included. On the drive home, neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, I looked over. I understand you now. Bruce smiled without taking his eyes off the road. What do you mean? Your family. They're exactly like you. He laughed quietly. I've been told that before. They make people feel welcome. He was silent for a moment. I'm glad you came. So am I. When we reached our building, we stayed in the parked car a little longer than necessary. I have a question, Bruce said. Okay. When you moved here. Yeah? Were you hoping to find this? I looked at him. This? Someone. A place that feels like home. I thought about it honestly. No. I wasn't expecting anything. Bruce nodded slowly. I wasn't either. The words lingered between us. A week later, everything finally changed. Not because of a dramatic event. Because of an ordinary evening. We had just finished another workout. It had started raining before we reached the apartment building, so we stood beneath the entrance canopy, watching the rain pour across the parking lot. I guess we're waiting. Bruce nodded. I don't mind. Neither did I. The rain fell steadily around us. I've been meaning to ask you something, Bruce said quietly. What? Do you remember what you said the first day? I said a lot of embarrassing things. You said the equipment was winning. I laughed. I remember. You also thanked me for helping. I did. I never told you why I actually stayed. I looked at him. I thought you did. He shook his head. Not completely. The rain filled the silence for a moment. I'd been having a rough month. I frowned. You never said? I didn't. My grandfather had passed away a few weeks before. My smile faded. I'm sorry. Bruce nodded. He was the one who taught me almost everything. Hiking. Photography. Helping people. I kept going to the gym because I didn't know what else to do. His voice stayed calm. I wasn't looking to meet anyone. He looked directly at me. But then you dropped that dumbbell. Despite everything, I laughed softly. That's quite a legacy. He smiled. You made me laugh. For the first time in weeks. The rain suddenly seemed very far away. I didn't know. You couldn't. He took a slow breath. I just wanted you to know. I looked at him for a long moment. You helped me too. Bruce tilted his head slightly. You gave me a reason to stop hiding in my apartment. I actually look forward to every day now. His expression softened. So do I. The words came out almost at the same time. Neither of us laughed. Instead, we simply stood there. I think, Bruce said carefully, somewhere along the way. He stopped. I already knew what he was trying to say. I know. You do? I smiled. I've been trying not to think about it. He laughed quietly. Same. Neither of us rushed. Neither of us wanted to ruin what had become so important. Finally, Bruce asked the simplest question he could have asked. Would you like to have dinner with me next Friday? I smiled. We have dinner together every Friday. I know. This one. He smiled nervously. I'd like it to be a date. For a second, I simply looked at him. At the man who had helped a stranger lift his first dumbbell. Who had taught me exercises. Decorated my apartment. Introduced me to his family. Changed my routines without ever trying to change who I was. I'd really like that. The smile that appeared on Bruce's face was brighter than any I'd seen before. Good. I was hoping you'd say yes. I was hoping you'd ask. The rain finally began to slow. Without thinking, we started walking toward the entrance together. Our hands brushed naturally. This time, neither of us moved away. We simply kept walking. Months later, people at the gym still called us workout partners. They weren't wrong. We still encouraged each other through difficult sets. Still argued about healthy food. Still laughed when I complained about lunges. The only difference was what happened after the workouts. We always walked home together. To the same building. The same floor. 2 apartments that eventually became one home shared by 2 people who had started as strangers living 2 doors apart. Sometimes I think about that first day in the gym. About the dumbbells slipping from my hands. about how embarrassed I felt. It's funny how life works. I went looking for better health. Instead, I found my favorite person. And every time someone at the gym asks how long Bruce and I have been workout partners, I smile before answering. Since the very first day. They're asking about fitness. But I know the real answer. We've been building each other up ever since.